September is Sickle Cell Awareness Month, and I'd like to take a moment to talk a little bit about sickle cell disease. And to talk about sickle cell disease, we have to talk about the red pigment inside red blood cells that makes them red, called hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is a long, complex molecule that has oxygen enfolded inside the coils of this long molecule. In sickle cell disease, there's a problem with the hemoglobin molecule. There's a problem somewhere along the chain, a genetic defect that messes up the ability of the hemoglobin molecule to coil up and enfold the oxygen inside its coils. The oxygen that's held by this defective hemoglobin is only loosely held, and the messed up hemoglobin molecule is not foldable and pliable like normal hemoglobin is, and that causes the red blood cells to assume an abnormal shape. They assume the shape of a sickle, this agricultural tool that is used to cut grass and hay and whatnot. The cells look like the blade of a sickle under the microscope, and so that's why we call it sickle cell disease. The red blood cells that have this defective hemoglobin are fragile, and so they break apart, and the person becomes anemic because they keep losing red blood cells that are self-destructing, and the pigment that's released into the bloodstream freely leads to jaundice. So one of the typical symptoms of sickle cell disease is anemia and jaundice. And then another problem with sickle cells is that the red blood cells, the sickle cells, are not flexible. They can't squeeze through the smallest blood vessels that we call capillaries. And so the blood gets jammed inside these capillaries, and that leads to a host of other symptoms, especially joint pains, breathing problems, and leg ulcers. And those are the main symptoms of sickle cell disease.